You ever been lost? I feel lost right now. Every week on Preaching to the Choir, I talk to you guys about something going on in my life, sharing a vulnerability, which is typically associated with a difficulty. And man, I'm going through some difficult times. I just lost a contract last week. It's an ongoing process as far as that contract falling apart, but I knew in my heart it was likely going to fall apart, and it did. So in 8 months, I've lost my company. I've lost my financial security. I've lost technically my children that I'm fighting for. And man, when you think you're at your lowest point and you're looking for salvation, you're looking for relief, I get hit up last week and they say, yeah, this contract, we're going to have to cancel it. So all the financial security and prospect for the future, a more secure future for my family, is gone. But at the same time, all those difficulties that I could count on both hands that have completely, nearly eviscerated my life, it's like, man, that's very dramatic of you, Mike. Why? Well, I'm here talking to you, aren't I? I'm still breathing, aren't I? I still have the ability to rebuild, and I will, bigger and better and stronger than before. It's about your perspective. It's about the optimism that you choose to live with. I have a healthy family, healthy children, despite the evil nature of the circumstance. I know there's going to be a day where all of this will be behind me. But it doesn't negate the fact that I feel lost. When you feel lost, often the natural inclination, the human inclination, is to mostly live unconsciously. When you're tuned into life and you're living proactively, you're aware of your decisions. But when you're lost, it's like a lucid dream and you feel disconnected and everything feels fuzzy. And then you just go along with the program. And sometimes the program leads you down the wrong path, because when you're lost and you're not focused on the right things like God, your faith and family, the devil sees that vulnerability, and our natural inclination to sin takes over. So then using the vice, the alcohol, the drug, whatever it is, becomes the only way to relieve the pain, or at least the feeling of the loss of control. You know, this morning, I feel like I'm walking through a season where I feel lost. Not in the sense that I've turned away from God necessarily, but in the sense that life's storms, pressures, and unanswered questions have me wandering in the wilderness, naked and afraid. Yeah, get that picture in your mind. Mike Glover, naked and afraid. So I also think that it'd be selfish of me to think that I'm the only one in this situation. A lot of you have resonated with Preaching to the Choir, and you're not even religious. Some of you are atheists, don't even believe in God. I hope that maybe something I say brings you closer to God. Selfishly, that's what I want. But also something provides you value going into this week so that you might be more resilient and stronger. So I know many of you feel the exact same way that I vocalized, where you're showing up, but inside you feel like you're drifting, searching for direction, aching for clarity, relief, reunification, all these high-speed words to unscrew the difficulty that I'm in. When you're lost, you question yourself. You question who you are. You question your choices, and sometimes you even question God. I have. I've had fits of it. Fits of it. And yet, Scripture reminds us that being lost doesn't mean you're being abandoned. Luke 15, 4-6, The lost sheep says, suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? That's Jesus's inclination. Jesus is saying that God's heart is for the one who wanders, even when I feel like I've strayed too far or that my mistakes might define me. He's still pursuing me. He's that sheep herder who goes into the wilderness and finds and recovers you. That's his promise. I also think optimistically, with some perspective, based on this Family Unity Act that I'm doing with national legislation, there is state legislation where I intend to propose a bill to enforce perjury or lying on the stand as a consequence to people who are caught in lies. How many people lie constantly and then they get in a court of law and expect, at least alternatively, the person expects that if you lie, you're going to be held accountable. That doesn't happen. And so when I'm going through all this legislation and talking to people, I've also talked to a lot of fathers. I talked to a father last week who is going through a more difficult time than I could ever imagine. You see, my children are still, parentally at least, part of my life, despite the system that's evil, malice and intent, mostly malice and intent, incentivized by money that are taking fathers away. I still have my parental rights until they decide they're going to take them. But they did decide in this man's case to take his parental rights. He hasn't seen his daughter in 2 years. And I can't imagine not seeing my children. I tell you right now, that would be a very difficult circumstance to be in. And I just don't want to imagine. But as I sat across from this man and he told me a story, I wept for him. Because as I'm sitting here talking about the difficulty I'm going through, he doesn't have his daughter at all. And all based on allegations. Allegations. No father, no parent should ever be stripped from their child. I also think about my buddy Danny, who was killed in a wingsuit accident a couple weeks ago, and his son and his mom. He was such a good human being. And it's like, out of all the people to lose their life, why would he lose his life? Why would he go? And man, all the grief those families are facing. This recent shooting that took place, those innocent children who died while praying. I could go on. You get the point. The point is, you think your situation is the worst. Yeah, for you it is. But having some perspective can offer you some solace. In Psalms 119, 176, it says, I have strayed like a lost sheep. Seek your servant, for I have not forgotten your commands. David admits it openly that he's strayed. And that's me most days. I mean, I can't even remember the period of time that I went on with a solid track record of not straying. So that's me most days, but I still believe and I still love God, but I feel far from God or further away from God. And this verse gives us permission to cry out honestly, Lord, I'm lost. Come and find me. Like, do I need a beacon? Do I need a sat phone? What do I need? Do I need to be crawling through a ravine, starving to death? How far are we going to let this go? And as you cry out, you think it's falling on deaf ears, like you have no comms, but he hears every word. And every single night for the last week, I've asked that same question. I've begged for some kind of relief, and I haven't gotten it. But also I know there's a spiritual battle going on within me, the voice inside my head. Another unpopular opinion will be that I think we're all consciously connected spiritually to God, And when you dream, when you hear the voice of God, when you have intuition, even a lucid dream, all of those things are closely connected to the spirituality and God's means of communicating. But just like any portal, it can be exploited. When that portal is exploited, it's exploited by the devil, by sin. And if you follow your natural inclination, my favorite word of the day, if you follow that instinct, it will lead you astray. That's why when you're lost, it's easy to lose sight of what's going on right in front of you, to have self-control, because you're panicking. You're running around and you're panicking. And that's how you get further lost. That's how you make really irreversible mistakes. If you continue down that path, but you stay focused on the things that you can control, then you'll seek the high ground and you'll look over the woods that have been consuming you, and you'll see the horizon and the outline of the mountains beyond you that I see right in front of me, and you'll realize you're not lost at all. You're just where God intends you to be. Isaiah 53:6 says, "We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way." And this is the gospel truth. Being lost isn't rare. It's a human condition. We all go through it. We experience it. You're probably experiencing it in your own life. But Jesus bore the weight of our wandering. That means even when I'm lost, my salvation and hope don't depend on me finding the way back. They depend on him carrying me the way back. God is like that search and rescue helicopter hovering over the triple canopy. When you think there's no hope, there's no chance, the light breaks through the top of those trees and that penetrator drops into the forest, and you can get on it and you can get that free ride. Imagine Jesus all kitted up and he's like, dude, he's got a carabiner in one hand, he hooks you up, and then they rip you out of the woodline. And as soon as you're propelled into the sky, you see the horizon, the mountains, and you look down at that little patch of green forest where you felt so lost and realize you weren't lost at all. You're exactly where he intended you to be. Closing thoughts, being lost isn't the end of the story. It's often the beginning of something new for you. If you feel like you're wandering right now, know this: God specializes in finding the lost. He's the search and rescue expert. He doesn't shame us for it. He rejoices and brings us back. Guys, I know you're feeling likely how I'm feeling. I want to close off with some news. I was going to start a nonprofit to help fathers and families, especially with my mission and my purpose of keeping families together. Even if they're broken and separated, I think it's important to keep the sanctity of that relationship, that family unity and bond, to give us the best chance of surviving and living our best life. It helps us as men and women. It also improves the lives of children who become men and women. And I want to protect that. The best way to do that, I've realized, is by starting a church. Because if I had a church, I could do counseling for fathers, use subject matter experts in therapy and counseling, and even legal advice to provide support for families that are struggling. Also, knowing that I'm not academically trained in biblical studies, I don't have a master's degree, knowing I'm not a preacher or pastor, and finding out that you don't need to have that. What you need is the legal construct, the 501c3. What you need is a name, and you need the conviction. You need to be able to get up every day and do it. And I intend to do that. You won't find me building a building. You'll find me online doing things like this, and then trying to grow, trying to learn. I'm not an expert. No man on this earth is the expert. We're just conduits for messaging. We're just talking heads. but I think that's the best way to help people. And I just did it. So more to follow from that in my personal journey and experience. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in and have an amazing week. Bye, guys.